Hello there, viewers of For You Television. Welcome to joining us on the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on this day. Our big stories of tonight. Russian and Turkish defense ministers have both evaluated potential grain export corridor from Ukraine as the ongoing brouhaha between Ukraine and Russia deepens. And of course, down to Africa, Adama Bictogo has been elected as new president of the Ivorian National Assembly, a position he has been occupying since the demise of Amadou Soumaoro. His challenges ahead in this edition of the news. Once more, thanks for joining us. I am Teke Wana at the anchor in Douala. We'll begin this day from Russia and Turkey, whereby we are told that Russian and Turkish defense ministers have both met and evaluated potential grain export corridor from Ukraine as the ongoing brouhaha between Russia and Ukraine deepens. This is with you, Charles Ekume Abane.
Turkish and Russian defense ministers Hulusi Akar and Sergei Shoigu have described a potential grain export corridor from Ukraine as well as situations in North Syria. Both ministers also evaluated all measures which could be taken regarding the safe shipment of grains, sunflower, and all agricultural products, as this was disclosed by the Turkish ministry on Tuesday. The announcement comes when the two countries' foreign ministers are to meet in Ankara for talks on United Nations-led efforts to open safe corridors for Ukrainian grain. It should be recalled that Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February halted Kyiv Black Sea grain exports, leading to threats of a global food crisis, which has driven up world food prices to record levels. Moreover, on Tuesday, the United Kingdom's farming minister called for an immediate investigation into allegations that Russia had been stealing grains from occupied areas in Ukraine. But Russia, on its part, has denied all allegations. Meantime, NATO member Turkey, who also shares sea borders with both Russia and Ukraine in the Black Sea, is currently working to mediate between both sides in their war. The Turkish authorities say they support Ukraine but have refused to impose sanctions on Russia.
Let's continue spreading our news tentacles down to the Asian continent, whereby anger is spreading in the Middle East over disparaging comments made by an official of the India's ruling party about the Prophet Muhammad, with various countries summoning New Delhi's envoy and demanding a public apology. Once more, Ekume Abane.
Is spreading in the Middle East over disparaging comments made by an official of India's ruling party about the Prophet Muhammad, with various countries summoning New Delhi's envoy and demanding a public apology. The United Arab Emirates, a close India ally, became the latest Gulf state to voice its condemnation of the remarks made last week by Nupur Sharma and Navin Jindal, two members of Indian Prime Minister's Narendra Modi Bharatiya Janata Party. The right-wing party took no action against Sharma and Jindal until Sunday, when a chorus of diplomatic outrage began, with Qatar and Kuwait summoning Indian ambassadors to protest. Shortly afterwards, the party suspended Sharma and expelled Jindal and issued a rare statement saying it strongly condemned and denounces insults of any religious personalities. The United Arab Emirates Foreign Ministry on Monday said the party's officials' comments were contrary to moral and humanitarian values and principles. The ministry underlined the need for respecting religious symbols and countering hate speech. In a statement, Qatari Minister of State for Foreign Affairs Sultan bin Saad Al Muraki said the party's official remarks will lead to incitement of religious hatred and offend more than 2 billion Muslims around the world.
It's been a while that German Chancellor Angela Merkel left office, and ever since then, she has not made public anything about the ongoing crisis between Russia and Ukraine. Of recent, she said in a public interview that dealing with Vladimir Putin is a hard nut to crack. Nota Beke compiled her reaction in the following report.
Merkel defended her legacy on Ukraine during the interview. She refused to apologize for her policies towards Moscow, stressing that nothing justifies Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The former chancellor said and insisted that in her dealings with Russia and its president, she had never been naive as many people might think. She stressed on her opposition of Ukraine and Georgia joining NATO in 2008, saying that Russian president would have caused enormous damages in Ukraine as the Ukraine back in 2008 was a very divided one compared to the Ukraine today, which is much more stable with a strong and courageous president, Volodymyr Zelensky. In her conclusion, former Chancellor Merkel, she noted that diplomacy is not wrong just because it hasn't worked, and that according to her, military deterrence is the only language Putin understands.
Now let's go over to Cote d'Ivoire, whereby Adama Bictogo has been elected as new president of the Ivorian National Assembly in an overwhelming victory. He now officially takes office after serving as interim president after the death of Amadou Soumaoro. Details with you, Nota Bianche.
Mr. Bictogo, 59 years, largely beat his opponent, Deputy Jean-Michel Amankou, 237 votes to 6, with 3 blank votes and 2 invalid ballots were also recorded. Mr. Adama Bictogo, who already enjoyed the support of the Rassemblement des Oufouettistes pour la Paix, RHDP, the majority in the assembly, benefited the rallying of the main opposition parties, including that of the Democratic Party of Ivory Coast, PDCI, from which his rival Jean-Michel Amankou nevertheless came from. A deputy for the Abonville municipality in the north of Abidjan, since 2011, Mr. Bictogo has held several senior positions in President Alassane Ouattara's party in recent years. He was also vice president of the National Assembly since April 2001 and started acting in the absence of Amadou Soumaoro before he died. He was also Minister of African Integration 2011-2012. Alongside his political career, Mr. Bictogo is the CEO of Ivorian Group, SNEDI, which notably produces biometric passports. Since the presidential election of 2020, where violence took the life of 85 people, several signs of appeasement have been perceptible in Ivory Coast, notably with the peaceful holding of the legislative elections in March 2021, with the return after 10 years of absence of Laurent Gbagbo in June 2021 after his acquittal by international justice.
Now let's get down to South Africa, where Julius Malema from the Radical Economic Fighters Party says South African President Cyril Ramaphosa must step down pending investigations over money laundering. This follows a report that money was stolen from his Falafala farm. Details with you, Leyuga Bonyoga.
Press journalist said Ramaphosa had failed to prove to South Africans that he is a worthy president. Meanwhile, the ruling African National Congress had welcomed and commended the decision by the president to voluntarily present himself to the ANC Integrity Commission. Embroiled in a burglary scandal, President Cyril Ramaphosa will appear before the party's Integrity Commission. Dogged by political infighting, the ANC is trying to overhaul itself by stamping out corruption. With members facing criminal proceedings being systematically suspended, The party is expected to nominate its candidate for the 2024 national election in the next few months. Since last week, Ramaphosa, 69 of age, has been weakened by accusations that he was complicit in buying the silence of burglars who stumbled on large sums of money at one of his properties. Cyril Ramaphosa owned game farm parties that are used for illicit financial flow, particularly money laundering. It is not surprising that $60 million was stolen from Cyril Ramaphosa's property and was not reported to the South African Police Services because criminals do not report crimes when the proceedings of crime are stolen. Robbers allegedly broke into Ramaphosa's Fola farm in the northeast of the country, where they found $4 million in cash hidden in furniture.
Now, ever since the military team of Mali announced 24 months extension in stay in power, many have been questioning of what importance it is. And of course, ECOWAS, that is, Economic Community of West African State members, have reacted to that effect. According to them, it is of no importance, but rather, the Malians believe that it is giving them enough time to better prepare elections in that country. Nota Bianca completes that story for us.
The effectiveness of this information is said to have begun since March 26, 2022 and will run for 24 months. The Mali military had initially promised to hold elections earlier this year, but a change of mind was witnessed and pushed to 2026, a move which was rejected by the regional bloc, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. In January, ECOWAS imposed sanctions on Mali, including closing its land and air borders with other countries in the bloc for delaying to restore democratic rule. Colonel Goita Assimi announced that the duration of the transition is in accordance with Article 22 of the law revising the Charter of the Transition. Meanwhile, ECOWAS has postponed its decision on the proposed transition period in Mali till July 3rd, but the sanctions put in place are still ongoing. The regional bloc is calling for a transition period of 16 to 18 months as opposed to 24 months proposed by the Malian authorities.
It is true that we would have expected these sanctions to be lifted immediately. I think we have to be a little patient. We are in a dynamic that will enable us to achieve this in a few weeks. All the participants are in this dynamic, and we must also remember that the few weeks that separate us from this decision must be used to ensure that we Malians remain calm. Let us avoid responding to provocations. Let us really avoid falling into the traps that are set here and there. What seems to me to be important is that the final conclusions of this summit take into account the proposals of the government of Mali, and the same proposals take into account the aspirations of the Malians for security reforms, political and institutional reforms in a 24-month transition period that should end in March 2024.
Mali's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation, Abdoulaye Diop, continued saying that these impacts have negative effects on the population.
A large majority of the delegations of heads of state present at the summit also noted the negative impact of these sanctions on the population, and above all the need to be able to lift them quickly in order to strengthen the transition process in Mali, but also to strengthen the regional economic framework, which is currently suffering from this situation, in order to ultimately strengthen peace and stability in our region.
Concluding, he gave how important and advantageous this time frame given by the Malian military is important.
We have always said that it was important to reform the electoral system, and the draft electoral law has already been submitted to the National Transitional Council. This draft electoral law also includes the issue of a single election management body, so that is an important element. The other element is the writing of a new constitution, and the rest of the parameters is the organization of the various polls at local, regional and communal level, but also the organization of legislative elections, which must take place towards the end of the transition process, followed by the presidential election.
In Cameroon, deliberations at the Upper and Lower House of Parliament were opened yesterday. At the Upper House of Parliament, it was being chaired by Senate President Massinat Njifendi, while at the Lower House of Parliament, Honorable Kavayege Jibril did the launching. This second session of the 2022 shall be focusing on examining the finance bill as prescribed by the Edo State President Paul Biya. The details in the following report.
It was a heavily attended opening plenary June session of Parliament at the Lower House in the presence of Prime Minister and Head of Government, Chief Dr. Joseph Diongute, Cabinet Ministers, members of the Diplomatic Corps accredited to Yaoundé, and many other personalities as usual after 2 months of recess. The members of Parliament shall in the next 1 month intensely scrutinize, evaluate government action and prospects of the budgetary orientation. Also on the agenda will definitely be the examination of the ordinance of the President of the Republic modifying the 2022 finance law with an increase of the state budget from 5,752.4 billion to 6,800.4 billion francs. In his opening speech, the Speaker of the House, the Right Honorable Kavayege Jibril, didn't fail to salute the massive participation of all Cameroonians in the 10 regions on the commemoration of the 50th anniversary of Cameroon's national unity on May 20, 2022. He exhorted the lawmakers to continue to respect the prescribed barrier measures by the World Health Organization in breaking the contamination chain of the pandemic, which is still ravaging lives in the globe. He then switched over to gratify the defense forces in protecting the national integrity of the nation from the hands of intruders, as well as the successful release of Senator Regina Mundi after 1 month of captivity in the hands of the non-state armed group in the respective northwest and southwest regions. However, Honorable Kavayege Jibril decried the use of claims by secondary school teachers for political aims and the creation of clandestine teachers' trade union to mount unnecessary pressure on the government in fulfilling their demands. Corruption, the Speaker insists, has always been a preoccupying issue to the lawmakers, reason why he decried the existence of the social ill in most ministries of the country as bottleneck to enhance professional consciousness by some state employees. Whatever became the end result after 1 month of deliberation at the lower house and upper houses of Parliament ongoing, one thing is certain: Cameroonians' desire to live a comfortable lifestyle on home soil, free from insecurity, drastic increase of basic commodities in our local markets, and the availability of social amenities, which are all ingredients of the sense of national belonging.
And of course, onto this other development, whereby following the killing of 9 villagers by soldiers in the northwest region, the government of Cameroon has issued a release through the Ministry of Defense apologizing to the affected families. But what actually happened? This is in the following report.
The socio-political tension in the northwest and southwest regions in Cameroon continue recording casualties from both the separatist and military forces. In a communique dating June 7, 2022 from the Communication Division at the Ministry of Defense, announcing an unfortunate incident which resulted to the death of several civilians in the locality of Misong Nyezwa, Fungom Subdivision, Menchum Division in the northwest region of Cameroon. The document, which goes further to say 4 of the 7 elements of the defense and security forces of the Bravo Joint Unit under the command of the 53rd Motorized Infantry Battalion discharged to the Abad Advanced Post and returning from a patrol were immediately redeployed to Misong village on a mission to search for a missing comrade. In the middle of the night, during the hunt, the latter ran into a group of deviant villagers. Inappropriate, the reaction was 9 villagers, including 4 women, 4 men, and an 18-year-old girl, got killed by the military when they came across a group of angry villagers, the Defense Ministry described. However, since 2017, a conflict is tearing apart Cameroon's northwest and southwest regions, with the military and secessionist militants causing enormous atrocities. Civilians caught in the grip of the war are the first victims of the conflict. Time without number, calls have been multiplied for both parties to exercise caution in the discharge of their mission, yet to no avail. According to the International Crisis Group, the fighting has killed more than 6,000 persons and still counting. For sure, the fighting has been long overdue, and the frustration is evident in the air as the blame game continues. the government of Cameroon has announced the demobilization of the 4 defense forces behind the June 1 atrocity and placed under arrest at the Bamenda Gendarmerie as a show of the commitment the government of Cameroon holds so dear in the protecting of our citizens in the face of war. It might not be enough, but every single action from both parties should be greatly appreciated by people of goodwill. It might not be enough, but every single action from both parties should be greatly appreciated by people of good faith of this great nation, who from a grieving point continue to helplessly watch the string of atrocities as they spread their tentacles now to the Noon Division in the West Region, killing a sub-lieutenant and 8 others. At a point in time when even prayer has not been able to help resolve the issue, eyes are thus turned to the heavens for divine intervention. The socio-political tension in the northwest and southwest regions in Cameroon continue recording casualties from both the separatist and military forces. In a communique dating June 7, 2022 from the Communication Division at the Ministry of Defense, announcing an unfortunate incident which resulted to the death of several civilians in the locality of Misong, Nyezwa, Fungom Subdivision, Menchum Division in the northwest region of Cameroon. The document, which goes further to say 4 of the 7 elements of the defense and security forces of the Bravo Joint Unit under the command of the 53rd Motorized Infantry Battalion discharged to the Abad Advanced Post and returning from a patrol were immediately redeployed to Misong village on a mission to search for a missing comrade. In the middle of the night, during the hunt, the latter ran into a group of deviant villagers. Inappropriate, the reaction was 9 villagers, including 4 women, 4 men, and an 18-year-old girl got killed by the military when they came across a group of angry villagers, the Defense Ministry described. However, since 2017, a conflict is tearing apart Cameroon's northwest and southwest regions, with the military and secessionist militants causing enormous atrocities. Civilians caught in the grip of the war are the first victims of the conflict. Time without number, calls have been multiplied for both parties to exercise caution in the discharge of their mission, yet to no avail. According to the International Crisis Group, the fighting has killed more than 6,000 persons and still counting. For sure, the fighting has been long overdue, and the frustration is evident in the air. As the blame game continues, the government of Cameroon has announced the demobilization of the 4 defense forces behind the June 1 atrocity and placed under arrest at the Bamenda Gendarmerie as a show of the commitment the government of Cameroon holds so dear in the protecting of our citizens in the face of war. It might not be enough, but every single action from both parties should be greatly appreciated by people of goodwill. It might not be enough, but every single action from both parties should be greatly appreciated by people of good faith of this great nation, who from a grieving point continue to helplessly watch the string of atrocities as they spread their tentacles now to the Noon Division in the West Region, killing a sub-lieutenant and 8 others. At a point in time when even prayer has not been able to help resolve the issue, eyes are thus turned to the heavens for divine intervention.
And of course, that report puts it up to today's 6 p.m. primetime newscast on For You Television. We want to thank you all immensely for your kind attention. God willing, we shall be back here tomorrow, same time. Until then, for what must have made us in Cameroon, Africa and the world, is goodbye from Berlin, Germany. Goodbye from Jamena, Chad. God bless Motherland Africa. Bye-bye.